Hey everybody, welcome to Metaversity TCG, your number one source for Metazoo competitive and collectible news. My name is Tuffy Maggio, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Jason Santana, and this is episode 1 of our podcast. Today we will be focusing on Metazoo competitive play and actually what to expect as a Metazoo competitor. Now, before we begin, let's kind of introduce ourselves. Let's talk about who we are, why we even created this podcast, and no better to start it off than Tuffy.
All right, well, I am a 20-plus year veteran of competitive card games, starting off in Magic the Gathering, essentially, and then here about a year ago, I decided to get into Metazoo, put my 6.5-year fishing business on hold to kind of live the dream, and now we're here. So it's been a pretty crazy journey.
Yeah, and I am an entrepreneur. I've been in marketing and e-commerce for quite a long time, around 15 years. I discovered Metazoo back in November, maybe October, as early as October, and just fell in love with the game. And I was an ex-professional poker player a few years back. But now, going into the competitive scene, it's super exciting. And I'm super excited to start discussing in this podcast about competitive play, because I think it's not a topic that's covered both from a expert standpoint and a newbie standpoint. You're the expert, I'm the newbie.
It's a perfect mix, right?
So why don't we start off with what to expect when you are a competitive Metazoo player, and we should just start and dive right into the events themselves. Going to an event, competing at a competitive level, and kind of where it all starts is the Metazoo Play Network. That can be found at play.metazoogames.com, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah, the MPN is a really important tool that you essentially have to use for any sanctioned Metazoo tournament that you go to. Most tournament organizers are going to use the MPN for pairings and such. So essentially, when you want to play in a Metazoo tournament that you find, which you can find on the MPN, a whole list of Metazoo tournaments and where the locations are and everything. So you find a Metazoo tournament, you go to the venue, whether it's a local game store or a bigger event. You are on that player list, but you have to check in also. So you sign up and then you check in within 24 hours before the event. Otherwise, they won't have you in the pairings or anything, and you just won't be able to play. So as soon as you get there, you check in. Some venues will have player meetings a few minutes before the start of the tournament. And so generally that's going to be about 15 minutes, something like that, before the start. So they will tell you kind of the details of the tournament, and introduce you to the judges and all that kind of fun stuff to make sure that you know exactly what's going on.
And you also get a chance to submit your deck list during that time.
Yes. Some tournaments will require you to submit a deck list if they're a larger one, but most local game stores don't really require that right now. But yeah, you submit your deck list, you check in, player meeting, and then that's when they say round 1 pairings are up, and that's when you get on your phone, get onto the MPN, and you check who you're paired with and what table. So let's say, on the MPN, start round 1, you are paired with somebody at table 5. So you go and sit down at table 5. One of the most important things to do when you sit down and when your opponent sits down is to confirm exactly who they are. So if you're paired against Bill and a Jessica shows up, you're going to be like, oh, well, something's wrong here. So you're either sat at the wrong table or your opponent is. And if you don't do this and you get mispaired, this can cause some issues for the entire tournament. It'll slow it down, and you just don't want to do that. So it's really important to double check who you are paired with.
Yeah, and I generally like to, do a nice some etiquette, some table etiquette. Shake a hand, a little fist bump, say who I am or who are you. Just confirming as well. Just it's nice, and the community loves it. You get to everybody, is so new, a lot of new players to the game, that it's nice to know who is there. And then you get to meet them again later on. You pass by them in the hallway and say, hey, how's it going? All of a sudden you have like a friend, and it's usually the first person that you get paired up with gets to be like your little bit of a buddy for the day. I see it all every time I go. I see it. And it's part of my experiences as well is, oh yeah, how'd you do? How was your last match? So it's nice. It's definitely a little bit part of the game. Not only is it part of making sure that you're playing correctly, but part of being friendly as well.
Yeah, like there's most tournaments that I've ever played in, and I've played in hundreds. The first person you play against, you're almost always gonna see throughout the day, and just generally you're gonna ask, "Hey, how you doing?" And also it's kind of important to know too, because that does play a factor in your opponent's match win percentage. That is a part of, kind of how you're ranked in the tournament, and sometimes that is really important in making top 8 and that sort of thing. But
yeah, so let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about the scoring and the ranking. And so you're going in, you're playing your first match. You may win or you may lose. Talk through how those points are kind of scored a little bit, and what does that win percentage exactly mean when you're competing?
So basically, when you're paired with another player, you're paired with somebody that has the same record, as long as it's a Swiss style tournament. And most tournaments are going to be, unless, they're single elimination. But, it's like if you're 2-0 and you're going to be paired against somebody that is also 2-0. And it gets important later on in the day. So like when, let's say the last round is happening, you are going to be paired with somebody that probably has the same record. And so there's opponent's match win percentage, your game win percentage, and that all plays into your ranking at the end of the tournament.
So would it actually matter if I'm 2-0? So if I win a match, does it matter if I'm 2-0 versus 2-1, and how much of the difference that is?
It does matter, kind of. It plays into your match win percentage. So I'm not exactly certain on how the MPN does the math, but when your opponent wins a game, it's actually kind of better if you go 2-1 instead of 2-0, because that improves your opponent's game win percentage. So there's your game win percentage, match win percentage, opponent's game win percentage, and opponent's match win percentage. It all factors into the final percentages that, if you're 6-1 at the end of a tournament, that factors into your end ranking compared to somebody else. So if somebody else had a bunch of opponents that went 2-1 against them, and you went 2-0 against all of your opponents, then their opponents are kind of weighed a little bit better, because it essentially means that they were kind of better than,
and then when everybody's a little bit tied up, when you see, like, sometimes you'll see those 16 through 8 spots, everybody's trying to make the top 8 cut, and there's a bunch of tied players. That's a big difference. Yeah. That's the difference of whether or not you're going to squeak in or not.
Yeah, and with how the MPN is right now, I've seen people that, you know, really should have been in the top 8 according to what table they were paired at, but how the MPN sat them was kind of different than what I'm used to in other like Play Network programs, and so they could be paired at table 3. And generally at table 3, you can draw in most cases, draw into top 8. But I've seen where table 2 was paired and they drew and one person did not make top 8 because their opponent's win percentage was way lower. So the tiebreakers set them, I think it was like 9th place. So you don't want to be that guy. I've gotten 9th place so many times in so many big events, and it feels kind of bad. So
now that, you know, some people are thinking like, about when I was in poker and you bubble. That's basically it. You know, you
yep.
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure.
Yeah.
Now we're prepared for our event. We kind of know what's going on as far as how we can, you know, how we're going to go in there. We understand how the tournament format. Maybe we understand how that tournament formatting is, but sometimes it's not always the same type of format, right? So you can go in, you can have a constructed version, you can have a casual version, and you can even go to a release event like what happened in UFO, which was casual, and that's where you get some event boxes.
Yeah. So there's the constructed tournaments and then there's sealed. And the sealed events are the ones where you get your release event box. I think there's like 2 packs in the box, and you use those 2 packs to improve the deck that's already inside. And those are kind of more casual events, but the constructed events are the more competitive ones. But
have we seen a competitive release event tournament yet, or do you think we'll see one
here? Not too long ago, I believe Caster Society put on one that was at a laser tag venue.
Okay.
That was a single elimination though too. So those style of tournaments are more casual because, you know, it's Metazoo is still a game of variance. So, you know, but best 2 out of 3 is, if you're a competitive player, that's what you want to look for. But yeah, that was the last one. And then the one before that I really remember was the first weekend that Metazoo ever put on constructed tournaments. That was at Collecticon. It was Nightfall Sealed.
Okay.
And yeah, but they're very uncommon. Most of the time it's going to be LGSs doing them. Sometimes there's an entry fee, sometimes there's not.
And even when you get to the events too, you could also go up to the judge and you can ask them, hey, what table am I up at? You know, you can confirm with them, go to the head judge, the organizer, any of the judges around that can help you get to the table that you need to get to. Because sometimes they're larger events, right? So like Caster's Cup, for example, that was a huge event and a lot of people were going up to the table. Hey, I know I was, hey, you know, you're playing 8 rounds. You know, you're planning on playing 8 matches, 8 rounds through. Phone juice is important. You don't always want to be reloading or refreshing your phone for the time or anything else like that. Best to go up to a judge.
Yeah, for sure. Portable battery packs. That's definitely tip. Something to bring. And then other things that you should bring too, besides that, would be water. We all learned that at the Casters Cup when it got to be later in the day. The building kind of closed, so you know there was
special
no food
circumstance in that case, but still good to have water anyway. You need to hydrate.
Yep. Yeah, like the bigger events are always going to run late, so Definitely bring water, bring a snack, bring energy bars, something like that. To make sure that you still have that energy to go through the day, because you are really exercising your brain. So there is brain fatigue is a thing.
Absolutely. And food can be rough. I mean, even during those lunch breaks that you get, I know that you only get a certain amount of time. So you're only getting anywhere between like 40 and 50 minutes in a lunch break if you're going to a bigger event, and you kind of have to rush to go get food. I mean, I had I had an experience playing at Long Beach. The only kind of nearby place, the place was held at, the event was held at a hotel, and the closest place to get food was at the bar, where you can just kind of get a hamburger or a salad or something like that. And all of a sudden, when the event was over, everybody rushes to the closest place, and that was the closest place. And it takes a long time to get the food. The kitchen gets backed up. All of a sudden, you may not get lunch. I personally had to leave, play the lunch was over, the lunch break was over. I had to go play a match, go back, then pick up my food, then eat in between. So it's definitely a rookie mistake on my part to not have the food on hand. Otherwise, you're going to be rushing, you're going to be frantic, because if you go to an event, there's nothing nearby. Now, ideally, if you're at a LGS and you're doing a 6-round event or something, maybe there's probably a pizza place nearby. There's probably something to eat. But in the major competitive events, food, sandwich, anything, better than nothing.
Yep.
Besides that, let's just jump right into the cost, because there's so much added cost involved when going to an event. We talked about food and water. That's probably the smallest thing we have to, the cheapest thing that we have to worry about. But we have to talk about the travel. The travel when it comes to going to an event, it can get expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Plane flights,
I've
car
been really,
rides.
yeah, I've been really lucky to live near Texas. So a lot of the bigger Metazoo events have been within driving distance. I've driven 7 hours to a couple. So, but yeah, flying can be sometimes ridiculous, especially with short notices. Like Long Beach was kind of a short notice for everybody that are just tournament players. So, I know a lot of the players down in Texas, they were spending anywhere between $250 to $350 for a plane ticket to Long Beach, and that's really not that bad, but they can get a lot more expensive than that.
And for those that are new to the game that are listening, Long Beach was a $10,000 cash prize pool. So first place was getting $5K plus prizes as far as like sealed product. But the announcement came a little late. Everybody was frantically rushing. I was, I'm in Vegas, so I planned my drive. So I was lucky enough to just be able to drive there. Lucky enough to drive 6 hours, if you want to call that lucky. But yeah, scheduling a plane flight, you're talking about last minute. I generally fly last minute in most things that I go to, and you can hit $300, $400 for a one-way ticket. Round trips sometimes reaching $500, $600, $800 sometimes to go travel a decent amount. I know going to Texas for me was expensive, because not only is there airplane, but there's hotel, there's Airbnb. So all these added costs, you have to factor into what are you actually going to the event for. Typically you want the experience, but ideally you want the money as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't really, you never want to go into an event expecting to win. Like that's a goal. You always want to go to an event knowing that you can win, but expecting it, putting yourself in a hard position. I know a lot of people do that, but it's generally something you don't want to do. But one of the biggest things about tournaments though is the community is awesome. and you can get in touch with other players that are going to the same tournament that you are. So you can actually help yourself with hotel costs, Airbnb costs, by sticking like 8 people in a 2-bedroom hotel, and everybody sleeps on the floor, or something like that. I've done it way too many times, and it's just something that grinders do. Like tournament grinders. That's generally just you sleep there, and that's essentially all you do at a hotel, because the rest of the time you're going to be hanging out with people.
Yeah, you might even find yourself in a late night deck testing session with everybody in the room with you. I mean, you've experienced it. I know I even experienced it at Casters Cup. I experienced late night deck testing, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, getting myself into a room and just playing with some people, making sure that things are kind of fine tuned. And just teaming up is a amazing strategy. Sharing costs. Obviously, you can't share a plane ticket cost, but maybe if it's close enough, you're driving, you can share some responsibilities, switch over the wheel, share some gas costs, a few hours away, ends up being a lot easier.
Yeah, and you'll make friends for a lifetime. That's one of my favorite things about events, is that you make lifetime memories out of the strangest situations. Sometimes, like I have countless stories about that, but that's
we'll
for another podcast.
Yeah, we'll have to do that as another session there. Now, as we continue to cover the cost, we're looking at our costs. We talked about food, we talked about travel, we talked about the hotel portion of it. Now, don't forget, you need a deck to play with. You actually have to play the game, right? And that's where things can also get really expensive. And depending on how much you want to pimp out your deck, it can get up there. So what do you think now, Tuffy, would you say, let's starting it off, everybody expecting and listening, what do you think is a minimal cost on average to have a competitive deck today in September?
So if you go with the minimal cost, I would say anywhere between $200 to $300. Probably setting more around the $200 range. If you go for the cheapest version of all the cards, the main big costs are going to be your New Year's New Beginnings, which you can play New Beginnings instead. But New Year's New Beginnings and First Anniversary Celebrations, which are actually ticking upward. So I think they're sitting around like $60 a piece now. And New Year's New Beginnings was around $50 before the Casters Cup, but now it's settled down to, I think, around $35 to $40. So there's
and those are two per the first anniversary celebrations. That's a 2 per spell book. So at the $60 range, you're already in at $120. Then you add a New Year's celebration at $35. That's $150 right there. No, we haven't even. That's and New Year's New Beginnings is a 1 per spell book. So 3 cards out of 40, and you're already in for $150.
Yep. And then if you're playing a deck that is dual aura, so more than one color, you have Prism auras to get, and those have been going. It wasn't too long ago they were $50 pop, and now I think they're sitting around like 70 to 80. So, it can get expensive. It really can. But there's those cards, though, the more valuable ones are the ones that are going to be evergreen. So as long as there's not a set rotation or something like that, you'll be able to play those cards for as long as the game's around. So get in early. That's
buy the cards as cheap as you can. And don't rip. If you're a competitive player, the idea is buy your singles, don't chase and rip packs. That's the advice. You don't want to hit up the booster boxes, because Tuffy, you have an experience with somebody opening booster boxes. We talked about the dual aura, the Prism auras. Tell a little bit about how not to chase.
So I helped a friend open 29 booster boxes. I'm not. I love opening packs, but when I'm hunting for cards or something like that, I am not going to open packs because it's always better to buy the singles. But if you're a pack cracking fiend, um, you open 29 booster boxes and get about 7 Prismoras. So at the cost of, I think he actually got a really good deal on a 29, or he got 24 of those boxes for, I think it was $1,400 shipped, and they were wilderness. So, at the time that was a really low price.
Well, the
And
market was also bottoming. The market was
yeah,
hitting a very low point. There was not a lot of confidence in the market as a whole. Not even just calling out Metazoo specifically, but just the trading card market overall wasn't doing. People were not confident, so people were letting go of a lot of inventory. But 7 out of 29. So
yeah.
that's 1 in every 3.5 booster boxes.
No, that's one
Not
in every 4 point something.
Is it?
Booster
My math is
boxes.
off. It's not a good ratio, and
Yeah.
from what I understand, even recently, Live Poke Auctions has opened up 20,000 packs, and he hit 100. Maybe he just hit 100 auras, so that was in a very large sample size, 20,000 packs. Divided that by 36 packs into the booster boxes, average ratio is like 1 to 5, 1 Prismor for every 5 booster boxes of Wilderness for
That's
just to grab a Prismora. So well worth just buying the card outright. Probably it's not justified why the card is even as cheap as it is for how hard it is to pull it, but hey, get it while it's hot. Get it while you can cheap now for sure.
Yeah, especially before. So right now, as of this filming, the there is no announcement on details for Towers or next year's Caster Cup. And what we've seen before Caster's Cup, this last one, is once that was announced, singles started ticking up. New Year's New Beginnings went from a $10 card to a $50 card practically overnight. The same
Loveland
with
Mailman.
first anniversary celebration.
Loveland
Mailman was
Mailman.
ridiculous.
Now,
Yeah,
it only took a month for it to go up 50% in price. I know exactly that math because I was one of those people that bought just slightly early, saw the market go up, and people were buying PSA 10 Loveland Mailmans to crack them open to play with them because they were cheaper than buying the singles sometimes.
Yep.
People, and it was not because you couldn't actually sell a graded card because people didn't want them graded. The market wasn't moving graded cards of that card, so eventually people were just buying them to crack them. I know you even said that you were gonna buy one to crack one, or you had one that you were gonna crack.
I mean,
just to play with it.
I just about cracked that PSA 10 because I needed one, and I didn't really want to spend the money on one when I had one in a little plastic case. But
right. And being player first, it's all about saving the money. As you can see, the costs are just racking up. Now you've got probably, if you're going to go fly to a major event, you're in $500 to $800. You've got the hotel, probably let's say the event is on a Saturday. That's the highest price for hotel, highest price for any Airbnb. That's a $200 to $300 per cost night, unless you plan on driving in the night before. The deck cost $200 minimum. You're probably somewhere around $1,000 now. And then let's talk about the accessories that we need too, because of course, Metazoo is notoriously known for these fourth wall items. And fourth wall items, if you're going to a very seriously competitive event, you need to physically bring these items. Some places, they'll let you write your fourth wall items as part of the mechanic of the game. You get a maximum of 4, but you have to, some of them, again, let you write it down, but the major ones, you have to bring the item with you. Some of them are expensive. Even like a bonsai tree, a fishing pole. These things are just not readily available at your local store. They're not at your Dollar General, that's for sure. You're not getting a bonsai tree, depending on what type of plant that you get. I couldn't even get a tree. You brought a tree. I've seen you bring a tree.
Yeah. I actually had a money tree, and the funny story about that was I got a money tree for the caster cup, and a little bit of details on that. So you have to have a real tree visible for Wood Devil, and that's in the Forest Decks. But so if you have a money tree, that counts as a plant and a tree. So you have your plant for growth covered, and a real tree visible for Wood Devil. So yeah, but the funny part about that money tree is that after a few rounds of me lugging it around in a bag, it became a dead money tree. And that was kind of
let's be honest, you manhandled the tree. You manhandled the tree. Now how much did that tree cost you?
I think it was around like $15. What was really cool is that $15. I mean, sometimes you can spend more. Like, bonsai trees are ridiculous sometimes. So
I have a really good plug for bonsai trees. $10 a bonsai tree. $10 for a bonsai tree, local near me. Not going to share the spot, but if anybody needs a bonsai tree, you could definitely hit me up. But you also need some more items.
Bonsai trees coming up.
I know when Caster Cup was going around, people were like, "Can I bring a boat?" I was like, "What are you going to do? You're going to spend money on a boat? You're going to lug a boat through?" It was. Some people were just really funny.
I thought about it. I mean,
if you're going to win $100K, you should think about bringing what you can to
win. Another funny story. So a friend of mine, Bagheera, he needed a mirror. He didn't have a mirror. So what I went ahead and did, I was like, man, I'm going to hook you up with a mirror. We're sitting in my car. I take the rear view mirror off and I hand it to him. And that's what he played with during the whole tournament. So it was really fun when I forgot to get it back from him. Yeah. He was really stoked about that. That's one of those things, like, about those bigger events or just any event in general, like it's a lifetime memory. I'll always remember that, and I'm sure he will too. So.
I'm going to remember it. I remember actually getting into your car that evening, and you were like, "Oh, I left my mirror. Somebody has my mirror." I was like, "What?" You're like, "Yeah, let somebody. Nobody had a mirror. Let somebody borrow my mirror." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Oh man, Metazoo and your fourth wall items. But either way, you need to come prepared. You need to have them. And there's a whole list of what is an official fourth wall item that you can claim. As far as items that you can claim, you can't go and claim every single thing that's on there. There is an official list, so you make sure that you go to the rules, and they're there. There's a full list of what you can find for those. But fourth wall items. Dice, you need sleeves. You want to protect those cards, those $80, $100. Sometimes people are pimping out their deck with $200, $300 cards because they are out there. And even now, so they are removing the rule for making it for that you could use Kickstarter cards now. You can use playtester cards now. You can use first edition cards. Before, everybody was freaking out because you needed second edition Cryptid Nation cards, but now it seems that the rule's gone and you can go expensive.
Yeah, they just implemented the second edition Cryptid Nation cards for the Caster's Cup, but then they didn't make that a permanent thing, which is a really good thing. I know a lot of people, they had CN1 and they didn't worry about getting CN2 because they had everything from CN1. But yeah, I'm really glad Metazoo walked that back. Yeah,
and we even saw recently at Caster Society in-person event recently, there was somebody with a playtester Thunderbird just throwing it down, and everybody's like, ooh, so you can really get flashy with the decks there. But again, it's expensive. Don't do it if you have the money. It's flashy, but that doesn't mean that it's going to make you win games. Flashiness doesn't win games.
Did you see the guy that was playing 5 player stamped foil lightning in a bottle? Like,
these are Caster Cup player stamped. So these are the highest, probably some of the most expensive cards we're ever going to see in this game. Unless it's somebody's playing Kickstarter, Chaos Crystal Mothman levels. Unless you threw down a PSA 10 slab on the table, which I don't think you can do.
A full slab deck.
But those are
I've heard
expensive.
of people talking about that. Yeah, they are, and that's all about pimping your deck. I'm more of a player that goes for the cheapest versions possible because I'm shuffling all day. I'm riffling. I don't want to take an $800 card and just bend the hell out of it all day. I'd rather just play with the cheap stuff. Toss those around, and there you go. I mean, sometimes people are going to cut your deck by shuffling, and some people are not the best with shuffling, so that can cause for some awkward situations if you hand them a deck that is filled with $100+ cards, and so it's best to do that. And then you have sets like Nightfall that every card comes as a non-holo. So getting a full player set of every single card is like under $100. So, why not do that? That's just my opinion on it. But
all right, so we covered the cost, we covered the events. Now let's talk about what we're going to be up against. What are we going to be facing? We're going to be looking at metagame, decks to see. What in today's in the September world of 2022, what decks can we expect to see in the competitive field?
So one of the main decks right now is Cosmic. Cosmic just won the Caster Society event that happened this last weekend. Herman Herrera took it down with Flatwoods Monster and El Verde entities to go for basically locking your opponent out of being able to play anything. And that's one of the most powerful things you can do right now. So there's that. Lightning gained a lot from UFO with Call the Storm. So Lightning is definitely always going to be like one of the top play decks right now.
Now, for those unfamiliar with Call of the Storm, that's going to be basically allowing you, I think when you're playing Call of the Storm, you're playing a Wikinia, which is going to give you 2 aura on the destroy. You're calling to Storm, and you're bringing in 2 beasties by turn 2. That's the plan, right?
You can. I mean, most of the time, it really just depends on what you're playing against and what else is in your hand. Because if you do Call the Storm too early, then when your opponent Call the Storms, they get their double Quetz or Quetz Thunderbird, kill your Quetz. So, it's one of those things like, you don't want to overcommit too early. And I think a lot of people that are just picking up the deck will make that mistake, but after a while they'll probably realize the right time to do it. So I think the Wikinian builds,
but still powerful. Call of the Storm.
Oh yeah, it's broken. The Wikinian builds, I think, are going to fall to the side because more people are playing water now too.
Interesting.
And water is really good against the Wikinian builds because you're not playing as many Hornets. And so when you don't have to worry about the Hornets with water, you're like, okay, I can play my Frog, I can play Lightning in a Bottle, or not Lightning in a Bottle, Smoky Spirits. Water also gained Manaya and it gained 4th of July, which 4th of July is a card to definitely pick up no matter what, because it's eventually going to see play in like every deck. So just the effect on that is ridiculous. But you'll see more water. Frost just won Long Beach about 3 weekends ago. And I was really expecting to see more Frost decks in the event last weekend, but there was actually more water and Cosmic. And we did see some Flame, but I think Flame is another deck that's going to probably take off a little bit because it does have a decent matchup against the Cosmic decks. You just have to kind of build it correctly. But water.
How close
Flame,
do you think people are in getting close? How close do you think people are to perfecting that Flame deck? Or do we still need to wait for another card or two from another set?
I don't think it's going to get perfected right now in this format before Seance comes, before Seance comes out. I think when Seance comes out, Flame should probably get some support. So, it's probably going to be more like a Flame Spirit build, because Spirit is really easy to splash. Like, you have Morpheus, and it looks like we're going to be getting another special aura. So I assume that's going to make multiple different colors. And if that's the case, then it's going to be easier to splash another color index and possibly even make dual aura decks a real thing.
Now, that special aura that you're talking about, that's going to be, if I'm correct, if I'm not corrected, it's aura possession or possession aura, or something. Yeah. It's titled something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that. And with that being the name,
possessed aura.
Possessed aura. Yep. With that being the name, so if it was possession aura, that would kind of say, okay, you might be possessing one of your opponent's aura. But with it being possessed aura, I think it leans more towards like maybe a dual color or something like that. I mean, I can only speculate, but we've seen really,
we only see the top half of the card. We only see the top half of the card. We haven't seen the bottom half that contains the effect text.
Yeah, they like to tease us, It's like, come on.
We want to see the whole thing. Yeah, for sure.
Show us the rest. Show us the goods.
So Frost deck, Water deck, Lightning is still good, and Cosmic is built creeping up there. And it's been creeping up for a little while. And I think, if you're going into a competitive scene, knowing what you're going to be up against, understanding a little bit how those gameplays work, also being prepared for that, being able to also, in your pre-game, if you will, playing against those different styles, understanding what's next, because a lot of times, sometimes you'll spend time sitting there and you're reading a card, you have no idea what it does. And you're like, what does this do? And you're reading the card there. The guy has, your opponent has to explain to you because they're keeping the integrity of the game. So, being prepared for those, but seeing those decks, understanding the metagame around them is definitely going to be key to being a competitive player and also being a winning player.
Yeah, you just have to make sure to check out all the content out there, all the tournament coverage. Check out articles, which there's information that you really need to know, keep up with, and once you do find those outlets, then you can just kind of be prepared. It's all about being prepared for a tournament. Everything that we've discussed is all about being prepared, so that when you spend that $800 to $1,000 to go to an event in Chicago or something like that, you're not wasting that money. You're going there with a really good chance.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going with a really good chance going in there with one. And then while you're there, because you're prepared for the metagame, you can also do a little bit of some extra things. And one of those extra things is going to be scouting, going to the
Yes.
events and scouting what's going on, walking around, what maybe some pregame while you're, finding your way to your table, or post game after you finished your initial game or any other game following, walking around and observing what's going on.
Yeah, especially when like it's always good to be able to scout a little bit, like after your match, check out the tables around you. If you're in the middle of a tournament and let's say you are at the top tables, the tables that are going to matter are going to be those ones that you're sitting around. So if you're at table 2 and you're in the second to last round, and you're not drawing in, then make sure to kind of just check out what people are playing. Don't stand behind them and be rude, and watch every card they play or something like that. Like generally, as soon as you're done with a match, most tournament organizers want you to just walk away from the play area, and just keep an eye though. Keep an eye on all that. If you're in the middle tables, pay attention to what's being played in the middle tables. If you're in the draw bracket, realize that you're going to be playing against other people that drew their matches too. So you're probably going to be playing against slower decks. So if you're playing, let's say Frost, and you have a draw or two, you're not going to be playing against the faster decks. You're not going to be playing against fearsome critters. You'll be playing against more frost decks, more water, sometimes flame, if it's a slower flame build, like gassy combo. So you have to really be prepared in your head to play against all those decks. And if you can, scout out your next round opponent, that's insanely valuable information. So that's another thing about scouting too, is that if you're playing against somebody that is on a team,
Yes.
the team is going to be probably playing the same decks or something similar. So if one person's on a more aggro deck, other people on the team are going to be playing aggro decks. Maybe not the same color, but probably about the same style, because they've realized that aggro is a good decision for that tournament. So, it's all about soaking in as much information as possible outside of your matches and while you're in your matches. Information is key.
Those teams kind of have crafted or have worked together to kind of to figure a metagame out. There's teams now that are, you can be a 2-person, 3-person team. Maybe you're just a couple of homies that play together. I would call that a team. There's competitive teams that are going in 5, 6 players deep, and they're theory crafting a lot. They're sharing a lot of data. They're sharing what they're putting together. And whoever's going to come up in the better win percentage, you can be sure that there's definitely some similarities in style.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the good things about teams and bad things too, because teams, one of the weaknesses for teams, if they don't test properly, is they get to think about the metagame is going to be this, so they're not prepared for the metagame to be something else. So, they think that the metagame is going to be full of fearsome critters, but in actuality, more people are going to be playing lightning, or more people are going to be playing water. So they're heavily prepared against fearsome critters, but they walk into an event and it's like, oh crap, we totally didn't plan for this. And that's kind of what I like to call inbred playtesting, because you're staying closed-minded to what you think is going to be accurate, but you're not paying attention to certain things. So you're prepared for a metagame that just isn't there, or for a metagame that is wrong.
Yeah,
So
and that goes to say, just to go back, we're coming full circle, going back and being prepared, playing, kind of pre-gaming, playing with other players, you know, consistently, always perfecting, always getting better, always seeing what's out there. I remember before flying out to Casters Cup, there were a couple of people that were like, "Oh, can we check out what you're playing? Can we check out your game? Can we see what's going on?" Because everybody's still theory crafting. They're still trying to figure out what that meta game is and how they're cycling in their cards. And everybody's just still last minute, always doing research. So the more prepared you are, the better it's going to be for you as a competitive player. And man, this is just a lot to cover. It's just being prepared, the cost to travel, scouting, looking at the teams, not having a team mentality, but maybe not having a team mentality, I guess, if that's even a good way to put it. And even then you have to play the game. You have to personally now play the game, right? So now you have to go back in your practice, think back. It's also being repetitive in the good moves that you want. You don't want to be repetitive in your bad moves. You want to get out of that bad habit. And that's coming from personal experiences in playing, getting through those bad habits, recognizing them. And as you're playing the game more and more, when I was playing water and testing with you, in a lot of the builds that I was working on leading up to Casters Cup, past Casters Cup, and then, kind of transitioning over to Critters, getting in a habit of playing how I'm going to play these hands when I observe somebody dropping a certain aura, knowing that, okay, this is how I'm going to play against lightning. This is the kind of repetition I need to follow. I'm not going to throw my whole hand up at first glance. I'm going to maybe reserve back and going through those motions. And I'm sure you the same, you going through these repetitions, these good habits rather than bad habits.
yeah, no, definitely. Like that's one of the things that I like to try to emphasize whenever I do coaching sessions or anything like that is the order in which you do things is very important. Even the smallest minute things. Playing a card before you draw cards, like, play Beastie before you play Bookmark is generally not a good idea. You want as much information as possible. So you play that Bookmark before you play your Beastie, and that will, like I said, the game is all about information, inside and outside your matches. So information is key, and giving yourself as much information as possible is one of the more technical aspects of the game that can really decide matches. So,
yeah, and even some experiences. I know that I happened to be observing a table of you at Casters Cup, and somebody was playing with what was it, a metal, and it was just uncommon to see a metal being dropped on the field. And now, it speaks to the volumes of, okay, that metal I saw when you were playing, it kind of hung out there for a little while, and that metal was giving a boost. And you were like, oh, there's just so much going on. I'm not really sure how to handle the metal. In these personal experiences, you have to kind of be prepared for almost everything and anything.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. Like, one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is finally when I play against somebody that has red ink or blue ink. Like, there was one guy that was playing with it, blue ink and red ink in their side deck at the Casters Cup, and I was really rooting for him. Yeah.
That's
like most people slap those babies.
Impressive and expensive.
Mm-hmm. And those cards are going to do nothing but get better. They get better over time because there's more erratas. Almost every set, something gets errated.
Now, these are $1,000 cards, multiple $1,000 cards. Red ink going for maybe, we're talking now the market's a little down at the high point, anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 a card. Blue ink being anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000. That's expensive cards. That's, if you're playing in an event like Caster Cup, that's a tenth of the price pool almost by the time you figure out how much they're spending in their deck. All power to them. But, the guy that brought them didn't win, unfortunately, probably wasn't as prepared, and now, and you don't need the most expensive deck to win. We know that. We've seen that, people that play cheap decks like cheaper decks like Fearsome Critters, or what would you say would be another lower end cost build would be? Maybe even Lightning would be lower end cost.
Lightning is kind of like, you still, depending on what build you play, like if you're not splashing for anything, you don't need Prism Auras. So it's really just New Year's, New Beginnings, and first anniversary celebrations. So, a couple $100 for the non-Prism Aura.
Right. And then when you wrap all that into a tight little package, getting through the game, you got to remember how you got to play the hand, but then you also got to keep in with your emotions, because you can go into a tournament and you can be nervous. And I know I was super nervous playing into my first tournament. My hands were shaking. I'm turning an aura. I'm not even sure how I'm supposed to turn the aura. As a new player, it can get nerve wracking. Obviously we want the practice, but even live practice, you could practice online right now. You can download a program called Tabletop Simulator. You can play through the game online, download the community mod. So you have the Metazoo package there so you can get access to all the cards, make your decks. But playing live is a whole different story. Totally different story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even playing online, like, when I first started playing online, I started playing in these weekly tournaments, and I knew nobody. And I'm like, okay, there's a chat room, people are talking, I don't know anybody. So, usually you kind of have those moments where you say something and nobody says anything back. That's your biggest fear. And it's like, all right, did I just make myself look stupid here or something? But, that's one of the really great things about Metazoo is that the community is so welcoming. So, but you are going to have those pregame jitters. And even experienced players. I've experienced that myself. I walked into a room where I didn't know anybody. I just knew them from online. And, Discord names and people's faces don't really mix too well. So you could be standing by somebody that you've talked to for hours online. And if you don't know their actual name or what they look like, you're like, dude, what are my thumbs? What's up? But the really good thing about it though, is like everybody's welcoming. So you can be like, hey, everybody, my name is Tuffy from Discord. And they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? So once you break that ice at first, it's going to be so easy after that. So that's what I experienced.
And it doesn't even have to be in the online setting. If you have a local store near you, jump into the store, jump into the store, talk to the owner. If they have an event, go introduce yourself. Don't be timid. This is probably one of the nicest communities. Would you agree, Tuffy? I mean, I'm sure you haven't. I mean, you have more years of experience dealing with other, communities and players. Would you say this is a pretty good community out of all of them?
I would say that this is by far the best community out of any card game that I've ever been involved in.
And that speaks a lot. That's 20 years.
Yeah.
That's over 20 years of play. So, yeah, just don't, it's okay to be nervous. Clearly, it's going to happen. We can tell you, don't be nervous. Don't worry about it. It may or may not. It's more than likely still going to happen. And then, taking in while you're playing the game, understanding that even losing is okay because it's a game of variance. You're not going to get a perfect hand all the time. It's not a perfect scenario. It's not, you still have to draw cards. You can still get unlucky. I think you have a model for that, right, Tuffy?
What's it? Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for luck, I'd win every one of them. I did not steal that from Phil Hellmuth. Phil Hellmuth stole it from me. So
yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, that's what I preach all the time. Like whenever I see somebody super tilted from maybe, somebody played a New Year's New Beginnings, and I had it happen to me at the Casters Cup. My opponent mulligans to 4, and I'm going first. My hand is full of the good stuff. I'm just ready to win this game. And I play an aura, play a bookmark. I'm like, all right, bring it on. You mulligan to 4. I should win this. And he goes, draw a card, play an aura, New Year's New Beginnings. And I get wrecked. I had all of my good stuff in my opening hand. There was nothing I could do. And I'm like, you know what? I wasn't meant to win this match, because the same thing happened to me that happened to him in game 1, but I didn't have a New Year's. So I mulliganed to 4 and just, piddled around. So it takes a while. It takes really training your mindset for games of variance to not go on tilt, because if you lose a game, you can lose round 1, and that can put you on tilt to where you make mistakes. You get emotion involved, and the best thing to do is play without emotion. And if you lose, you lose. Sometimes it wasn't meant to be. Sometimes you goofed. Better luck next time. But this isn't chess. It isn't a game of perfect information and no variance. This is a variance-based game, and that's what we love about it. If we didn't like variance, we'd be playing 100% skill-based games. Like my wife, she hates card games and she just plays MOBA games. So, but
I think it's important that people know that at least get some information, or at least a little bit better than what you did before. If you end up going to a match, you lose game 1, if you recognize a mistake that you did, if you go to game 2 and you don't make that same mistake again, that's a learning experience that you're going to take with you. It's part of experiencing the game. It's part of learning. And the only way to get better is to learn and keep playing, lose, win, get better, keep playing, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, like when you lose, that is a learnable moment. Like that's when you should be learning. When you beat somebody, you are essentially teaching that person. And I always say that, I mean, in some instances, this is wrong, but you're as good as the best player that you play against. So that's why I really like playing in local game stores, because if you're the best player in there, it's better to teach people to get better. And when you have like a perfect example is a pro Magic player I know that they started playing at a game store, and that game store started having Pro Tour regulars. Like that just goes to show that you're as good as the company you keep. So you just have to continue to learn, like learn, soak it all up, game theory, everything.
And by all accounts, if at any time it's still nerve-wracking for you, you're anxious, you're not sure what's going on, you're still feeling uncomfortable with the game, you can reach out to the people that are in that organized event that you're going to. You can talk to a judge if you're unsure of something. Maybe not ask them you don't want to ask them during a game what to do, because they can't help you with that specifically. But post game, people do that. They ask, what can I do? I know I've done it and they've told me I can't do it. So know for a fact you can't. But post game, go to a judge, go to an organizer, the tournament organizer. Reach out to other players that may be smart, more experienced or smarter than you, and ask some questions. Again, people are there to help. It's a great community, and you could ask questions, feel as, and it can ease you. The more you talk, the more the jitters come out, the more that you engulf yourself into the game, the better it is overall going to be for you, 100%, without a doubt. I've gone through it. I certainly think that most people can.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like like I said, this is one of the best communities out there for any card game. So it's really welcoming, and you'll get rid of those pregame jitters pretty quick.
And one of the best ways to do that and to continue to keep getting better at the game is to continue to listen to us on this podcast. And this will be a weekly occurrence. Every week we're going to come out with one episode for competitive community. And in that same week we'll come out with a collector version for the community. And then every week following it's the same thing. You could probably expect, I think we're shooting for Thursday and Friday for the competitive side, and on the collector side, the quote unquote investing side, maybe a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday release for some podcast, some talk, and have some special guests on as well. We'll do some interviews. We're going to bring more people in from the community, get to be more expansive with the game, get the knowledge out there. And if you, as a listener, as a viewer, if you have any questions, you could put them in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can put it in the comments below. If you want to hit us up on Instagram, all our socials are the same. It's going to be Metaversity TCG. And Metaversity TCG on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and we also have a Patreon, don't we, Tuffy?
We do. You can find the link to our Patreon in the video details. It's also Metaversity TCG on Patreon. Just go ahead and search there. We will have exclusive content for patrons, early access content. We also plan on doing special tournaments for patrons. So patron-only tournaments. That'll be online or even webcam based. I love posting really detailed content on Patreon, and I will say this before every big tournament that I play in, we are going to have my deck list. I will post the exact deck list on there so everybody knows exactly what I'm playing.
Wow. Quite the challenge. You'll know exactly what you're playing.
Yep. I'm confident enough to do that. So I'm all about transparency. Like I want everybody to get, the best possible competitive content that is out there, and not holding secrets back, not holding deck lists back. I just want to be like, hey, this is what I'm playing. Good luck.
And we're going to keep putting out quality content for everybody to see. And all you have to do is either hit the subscribe button, tune in every week. We've got plenty more content that's releasing on all different types of social media channels. So stick with us. We promise we're going to give you as much information as possible. We're going to cover as much information as possible. News, decks, tournaments, players, collectors, everything, as much as we can. And we're here for you. And that is actually going to conclude our first ever podcast. How do you feel?
Uno.
In the books.
It feels awesome. Yep. I can't wait to celebrate podcast 100. That's going to be fun.
That would be a huge milestone. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Appreciate you. Tuffy, any last words?
Well, before we go, maybe we want to make a shout out to our patrons that we have.
Why not? Let's do it.
So we'd like to give a big shout out to our patrons that are currently supporting us on Patreon. And the first one is James V. The second one is Sam M. And then we have Jason S.
Which is me.
And then
shameless.
That's a good one. Yep. And then we have Dave B. and Georgios M. So thank you all for the support. We really do appreciate it. And we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the fantastic community showing all the support. And
we hope we hope more people join.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
you're still going to get free content, so don't worry about it. So just keep on listening in every week. We'll be here for you.
Yep. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.